The silence before the storm. The skies above Velith Prime glowed with a copper hue as 3 suns dipped low on the horizon. Towers of translucent crystal rose from the surface like frozen thunderbolts, humming faintly with stored energy. The Velithians were a proud people, graceful and tall, their skin shimmering with faint bioluminescence that marked age and rank. For centuries they had ruled this region of the galaxy with quiet strength. But tonight, their capital was restless. High above the city, in the chambers of the Grand Assembly, the Council of Elders gathered. Their translucent wings folded tight, their voices buzzed in clipped tones. News had reached them, news that carried the weight of legend. A new species had been discovered, not just another backwater world with primitive hunters or farmers. No, this species had warships. They had weapons capable of burning through shields that most civilizations still struggled to build. And most dangerously, they had used them. The Velithians had intercepted fragments of comms traffic from Frontier. Scouts, the words were still replaying across every hall of government. Unknown vessels. Aggressive design. Human crew. Target annihilated in under 30 seconds. Gods help us. They're not afraid. The name of this species was short, crude, almost ugly to Velithian ears. Humans dotted the edge of the chamber. One figure sat quietly, observing the panic with sharp, tired eyes. His name was Kalen, a Velithian mechanic who had never expected to sit within the assembly. He was not a counselor, not a warrior. He was, by human standards, a man with oil-stained hands who fixed things others discarded. But Kalen had brought with him someone who changed the tone of the meeting. A being the others refused to meet directly. A human. The man sat slouched. In his chair, scars along his jawline, dark hair cropped close, eyes scanning the alien chamber with calm that unsettled everyone. He wore a battered jacket instead of ceremonial armor. His name was David Howell, once a soldier, now something between a drifter and a survivor. He had lived among the Velithians for 2 years, repairing their engines, trading knowledge, fixing broken machines they thought beyond repair. They called him an oddity, a curiosity. Until now, counselors, David said, his voice deep, unhurried. You've been asking the wrong questions. Dozens of luminous eyes turned toward him. You want to know what humans can do, he continued. But what you should be asking is what we will do when threatened. Kalen shifted nervously beside him. He had grown to trust David, even admire. His strange stubbornness, but the council was not ready. Their fear was too fresh. An elder slammed his staff against the floor, crystal ringing like thunder. You dare suggest your kind would strike the assembly worlds? You are guests, nothing more. David leaned forward, resting his scarred hands on the table. Elder, if your scouts fired on a human ship, even by mistake, you wouldn't be holding this meeting. You'd be counting the seconds before fire rained down on your cities. That's not a threat. That's reality. The chamber buzzed in alarm. Words like barbaric and reckless echoed. But David did not flinch. Because he remembered Earth. He remembered standing among ships built in orbiting dry docks, machines so vast they eclipsed cities, and knowing they had been built not out of conquest, but survival. Humanity's wars had taught them one truth: never wait for mercy. Kalen felt the weight of it too. For all his people's elegance, they had grown complacent, relying on reputation and diplomacy to protect them. But humans carried war like a shadow. The assembly dismissed David with uneasy murmurs, declaring they would study the human threat. Kalen walked with him into the twilight streets, crystal towers glowing like dying embers. They don't believe you, Kalen said softly. They don't have to, David replied, lighting a battered cigarette. The smoke curled against the alien sky. Soon they'll see for themselves. Far beyond Velith Prime, On the edge of uncharted space, something stirred. A human expeditionary fleet, ships black as midnight, their hulls lined with scars from old wars, had just entered the galaxy's official trade routes, and every civilization watching the skies felt a shiver of dread. Asterisk, the ghosts in Igos. Dark the assembly chambers shook as the emergency signal blared across the crystalline walls. Velithian elders froze in mid-speech, their luminous wings quivering. The Cums crystal at the center pulsed violently, projecting a broken message into the air. Static. Then a desperate voice. They came out of the void, no warning, dark halls. Weapons by the stars, the weapons, the transmission. Cut into screams, then silence. Every counselor turned toward Kalen and the human sitting quietly beside him. David Halle didn't move. His cigarette smoldered between two fingers, smoke curling in the chamber's charged air. Your people did. This? An elder hissed. No, David said calmly. If they'd wanted you dead, you wouldn't have gotten the warning. The elder slammed his staff. A Velithian fleet is gone. David leaned back, his gaze hard. Fleet's not gone. They left survivors long enough to send a message. That wasn't destruction. That was a signal. Kellen's stomach turned. Cold. He knew David was right. The humans had let the galaxy see their power. Not by chance, but by choice. The counselors erupted in panic, debating retaliation. Kalen felt their fear and pride colliding. Two forces that had never been tested against something like this. But David's words cut through them all. If you strike at those ships without understanding them, you'll bring fire on worlds. You can't defend. I've seen them fight. I've seen them survive things you wouldn't believe. The assembly ignored him. Orders were given. Another Velithian fleet would mobilize. That night, Kalen walked the streets with David. Crystal spires glowed with soft energy, their beauty mocking the dread crawling through Kellen's mind. You knew this day would come, Kalen said. David exhaled smoke, his expression unreadable. Every human knew. Out there, he gestured to the star-filled horizon, we're not welcome. Doesn't matter if we come in peace, someone always tests us. And when they do, he tapped Ash onto the glowing street. We don't bow, Kalen frowned. But why warships? Why not diplomacy first? David's eyes, tired and sharp, turned to him. Because in our history, every time we showed our open hand, someone cut it off. So now we shake hands with one open palm, his fist clenched, miming a gun, and one closed. The mechanic shivered. His people had lived so long in stability that the idea of survival through fear felt alien. Yet, walking beside this scarred human, he felt the brutal logic. 2 days later, Kalen stood at the edge of the Velithian starport. The new defense fleet launched, brilliant silver vessels with crystalline armor. Their engines left trails of blue light as they cut into the void. Thousands cheered from the city below, but Kellen's gaze drifted to the stars. He wondered if he was watching them rise, or vanish forever, that far beyond the system. The Velithian fleet entered the border sector where the last transmission had originated. The stars there seemed darker, empty, wrong. Scanners reading interference. The fleet commander muttered dot, and then they saw it. A single ship drifting in the void. Black as the night itself, its hull scarred but unbroken. Massive in scale, dwarfing even the Velithian flagships. Its weapons glowed faintly, like dormant. Volcanoes. The humans had arrived. Identify yourself. The commander demanded, voice echoing across the bridge. For a long moment, silence. Then a human voice, deep and calm, carried across the Cums. Asterisk, this is the UNS Dauntless. You have entered contested space. Power down your weapons and withdraw. The Lithians bristled. Their pride flared hotter than their fear. This system is under assembly protection. You are trespassing. Another pause. Then the human voice again. No, we're not trespassing. We're returning. Before the Velithians could respond, the Dauntless moved. It didn't fire. It didn't threaten. It simply slid through space. With impossible grace, cutting across the fleet's formation like a predator circling prey, the Velithian commander ordered the first volley. Energy lances burst forward, striking the Dauntless's black hull. The beams dissipated like water against stone. And the human ship's weapons came alive. A single broadside. One devastating sweep of plasma cannons that ripped half the Velithian fleet apart in seconds. Ships bloomed into fireballs, their crystalline armor shattering like glass. The survivors screamed. The Dauntless did not pursue. It let them run. Back. On Velith Prime, Kalen and David listened to the broadcast in silence. The Velithians were shaken. The assembly chambers echoed with panic, words of vengeance clashing with pleas for peace. Kalen finally whispered, "Why didn't they finish? The fleet? Why let them live?" David's cigarette burned low. His voice was heavy with something Kalen couldn't name. Because humans don't waste bullets. They don't fight to kill every enemy. They fight to send a message. Kalen shivered. What? Message? David's gaze hardened. That the galaxy isn't ready for us. Broken alliances, the galaxy trembled. Every major power, the scaled Torvath Dominion, the insectoid Hivekin, the crystalline Velithians, even the distant Fralari. Concord had received the same signal. The voice of the Dauntless, carried across relay beacons, echoing into the halls of governments and war councils alike. Humanity has returned. Stand aside or stand against us. Simple, direct, terrifying. For the first time in centuries. Ancient enemies began to whisper together in secret halls. Alliances formed in shadows. Spies traded fragments of human data like priceless relics. Entire fleets shifted position along borders that had not changed in generations. No one trusted anyone else. But all agreed on one thing. The humans were dangerous. On Velith Prime, Kalen found himself walking a line he never wanted to tread. The assembly had ordered him to keep close to the human David Hawley. You know his manner, the elders told him. You are his companion. We need to know if he speaks truth, or if his words are poison. Kalen hated it. David was no saint. He was blunt, reckless, too quick to remind people of their weaknesses. But Kalen trusted him. More than he trusted his own leaders now. He found David at the starport, sitting beneath the skeleton of a broken cargo hauler. Human tools scattered around him, crude by Velithian standards, but effective. Sparks showered as David welded a shattered plate back into place. You're fixing this? Kalen asked, baffled. That ship's been scrap for years. David didn't look up. Scrap to you. To me, it's a machine that needs another chance. Kalen tilted his head. His people never wasted time repairing what could be replaced. But humans, he was learning, did not discard easily. Not ships, not tools, not even people. David finally set down the torch, wiping sweat from his brow. His eyes, weary but sharp, met Kellen's. They're going to come for us, he said flatly. Kellen's. Wings twitched. The assembly or the other powers? Both, David replied. They don't trust us. Hell, I don't blame them. But fear makes people stupid. They'll attack before they understand what they're fighting. And if they do? Kalen asked softly. David lit another cigarette. His voice was grim. Then the galaxy's about to learn what human war really looks like. Weeks passed, fleets moved. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed human ships had been seen on dozens of borders at once. Others swore humans carried weapons that bent space itself. A few whispered that they were not conquerors, but refugees, a scattered people seeking a new home. But no one agreed, and no one dared to wait. The first spark came from the hivekin, Kalen, and David watched the transmission in the assembly hall. Swarms of hivekin ships pouring into contested space, hundreds of living vessels gnashing with organic cannons. Their target was clear, a human outpost, newly established on a barren moon. The images were grainy, but the outcome was not. The hivekin fleet descended like locusts. The human base had only 3 ships in orbit. 3 against hundreds. Assembly chamber buzzed with smug relief. At last we will see them humbled, one elder hissed. No species can stand against such numbers. But David leaned forward, his face like stone. You're about to learn something, he said coldly. Never count humans out until the smoke clears. On the transmission, the hivekin swarm surrounded the human ships. The 3 vessels were old, scarred frigates with jagged armor, outclassed, outnumbered, outgunned. The hivekin opened fire. Energy blasts and organic missiles filled space with fury. The human ships staggered under the onslaught, shields buckling, hulls burning. Then the humans struck back. It wasn't with sheer power. It wasn't with overwhelming fire. It was with precision. Every volley landed on weak points. The hivekin's soft venting membranes, their vulnerable communication nodes. Where the swarm was strongest, the humans didn't attack. Where it was weakest, they hit again and again, carving holes into the swarm's living tide. The Velithians gasped. That's impossible. How can they know the hivekin's weak points? David's answer was simple. Because humans study. We fight. We adapt. We learn from every enemy. We've been doing it since we first picked up sticks and stones. On the broadcast, the hivekin swarm began to falter. Hundreds of ships became dozens. Dozens became wreckage. And when the tide broke, the 3 human frigates didn't pursue. They didn't annihilate the retreating hive-kin. They simply sent one message, repeating across every channel. This world is under human protection. Approach at your peril. The assembly chamber erupted in chaos. Some demanded immediate alliance with the humans. Others screamed that this was proof of their danger. But Kalen noticed something no one else seemed to see. David, sitting in silence, his jaw tight, his cigarette forgotten. You're not celebrating, Kalen whispered. David shook his head. His eyes were haunted. They shouldn't have won that fight, he said softly. Not with those numbers. Not with those ships. That wasn't just training. That was desperation. Kalen frowned. What do you mean? David finally looked at him, voice low. They're not just showing off. They're running from something. Something worse than anything you've seen. Kalen's blood ran cold. If the humans were refugees, then what kind of enemy had driven them here? The warship awakens. The signal echoed across Velith Prime like a whisper from the grave. Not human. Not Velithian. Older. Stranger. It pulsed through every crystal comms array, every listening post, every relay. The tone was deep, resonant, as if the void itself was speaking. Engineers tried to decode it. Priests tried to sanctify it. Spies tried to weaponize it. None succeeded. The message was simple. We are coming. The assembly froze. If humanity's arrival had stirred fear, this signal birthed terror. Entire worlds sent frantic reports of strange sensor readings in deep space. Fleets vanished. Colonies went dark. And through it all, David Howell sat in silence, staring at the playback. That's not ours, he muttered. Kellen's wings twitched. Then who? David rubbed his jaw, eyes distant. I don't know. But if the humans ran, if they came here armed to the teeth, maybe they weren't coming to fight you. Maybe they were coming to hide. The word struck Kalen harder than a cannon blast. Humanity wasn't an invader. They were refugees, driven across the stars by something even they couldn't face. Days later, Velith Prime's skies burned with panic. The Assembly scrambled fleets, but their discipline cracked. Factions argued. Some wanted alliance with the humans. Others demanded preemptive war before humanity betrayed them. In the chaos, Kalen found David at the starport again, crouched beneath the battered hauler he'd been repairing. The ship's engine hummed faintly, alive for the first time in years. You work while the galaxy burns? Kalen demanded. David didn't look up. This is what humans do. We fix things. We make broken pieces work again. He tightened a bolt with a grunt. War, politics, fear. That's noise. Machines don't lie. They either run or they don't. Kalen stared. His people discarded the old, replaced it with the new. But here was this stubborn human, reviving a relic just to prove it could be done. Perhaps that was why humanity frightened the galaxy, not because of their weapons, but because of their refusal to give up. The crisis reached its peak when Dauntless arrived in Velithian space. It appeared without warning, a black shadow blotting out the stars. Vast, scarred, silent, like a leviathan from humanity's darkest legends. Every Velithian warship scrambled, forming a trembling defensive ring. The Assembly sent frantic demands. Withdraw, explain, surrender. The Dauntless replied with only one message. Enemy signal is approaching your world. Prepare for war. Kalen stood on the starport balcony beside David, staring upward as the human warship drifted into orbit. Its cannons glowed faintly, alive with restrained fury. His voice shook. It's bigger than I imagined. David's eyes never left it. His jaw was tight, his voice low. She's not just big. She's old, carried through wars you can't imagine. Every scar on her hull is a grave marker. And if she's here... He inhaled sharply. Then whatever chased us is close. Hours later, the enemy came. Not ships of crystal. Not living. Swarms. Something else. The void split open like torn fabric. Outpoured vessels shaped like jagged knives, blacker than the void itself. Their movements were wrong. Too sharp, too fast, as if space bent unnaturally around them. The Velithian fleet panicked. Their energy lances scattered uselessly against the intruders' hulls. One by one, their silver ships burst into flames. Crystalline armor shattered like glass. Kalen gripped the railing, trembling. We're losing. David's cigarette flared in the darkness. His eyes locked on the Dauntless. Not yet. The human warship moved, slowly at first, drifting like a giant rousing from slumber. Then, with terrifying speed, engines roared like thunder. Cannons blazed to life, bathing space in white fire. The first volley ripped through the invaders like paper. 3 enemy ships exploded in a single strike, fragments spinning into the void. Velithian Comes went wild. Impossible. No vessel carries such firepower. It fights as if it knows them. David's voice cut through Kalen's panic. She does know them. We fought these things before. Barely survived. The Dauntless. She's one of the few that came back. The warship danced through the enemy like a predator in bloodied water. Every cannon spoke with precision. Every strike tore holes into the enemy formation. But for every ship the Dauntless destroyed, 2 more appeared from the rift. The invaders were endless. Velithian vessels crumbled around her. The sky above Velith Prime became a graveyard of burning wreckage. Kellen's voice cracked. She can't hold forever. David's jaw clenched. His eyes glistened in the glow of fire raining from the heavens. No, he said quietly. But humans don't fight forever. We fight long enough. Long enough for someone else to stand beside us? Kalen turned to him. You mean us? Asterisk David met his gaze. Do you want to live under their shadow? Then learn, adapt, fight with us. Or die waiting for mercy that'll never come. Kalen's heart pounded. His people had lived in elegance for centuries, relying on reputation and treaties. But in that moment, staring at the warship bleeding fire across the stars, he saw the truth. Humanity wasn't the threat. Humanity was. The shield dot, and if they fell, the galaxy would follow. The Dauntless's comms flared, broadcasting across all channels. A human captain's voice rang out hard and unyielding. This is Captain Reyes of the Angus Dauntless. Velith Prime, we're not here to conquer. We're here to stand. If you want to survive, stand with us. Kalen's wings trembled. The assembly would hesitate, argue, waste time. But the choice had already been made in his heart. He turned to David, his voice steady for the first time. Then teach me how humans fight. David's scarred face softened, just for a moment. He nodded Dot, and above them, the warship roared into the night, a living testament to defiance. Asterisk fire across the stars. The rift widened. Velith Prime's night sky burned as the stars themselves seemed to vanish, devoured by a yawning wound in space. Out of it crawled a leviathan. Its shape was wrong, shifting with every glance. Half ship, half nightmare, larger than cities, dwarfing even the Dauntless. The Velithians screamed through comms. Some ships broke formation and fled. Others fired. Blindly, their weapons scattering like sparks against a mountain. David Hall stood on the starport balcony with Kalen, his scarred face bathed in crimson light from the burning heavens. His cigarette trembled between two fingers. That, he muttered, is what chased us here? Kalen's wings fluttered, his voice breaking. It's impossible. Nothing could be that large. David's eyes were grim. Size? Doesn't matter. What matters is, it doesn't stop. Not until everything we know is ash. Above them, the Dauntless dove straight at the Leviathan. Her cannons blazed white fury, cutting swaths through the smaller invader ships, clearing a path. The Velithian fleet, battered and bleeding, tried to follow her lead. But their weapons barely scratched the enemy hulls. The humans fought differently. They didn't fire in panic. They didn't scatter. Every shot was placed with intent, cutting into joints, weak points, anything that slowed the enemy down. Kalen whispered, "She fights like she knows their every move." David exhaled smoke, his eyes never leaving the battle. "Because she does. We've bled against them for years. Every scar on that hull is a memory. Every death we've had to learn from." The Leviathan turned, and the stars themselves seemed to bend around it. A beam of raw void energy cut across space, slicing through a Velithian battleship as if it were paper. Thousands of lives gone in a blink. Kellen's stomach lurched. "We can't win." David's voice hardened. "Then we don't try to win. We try to last, long enough for someone else to stand with us." Inside the assembly chambers, chaos reigned. Elders screamed for retreat, for surrender, for evacuation. But Kalen burst in, wings glowing with rage. "You cowards!" he shouted, shocking them into silence. "Do you not see? The humans fight for us. If they fall, we fall next." The chamber erupted with fury. "Blasphemy! They will. Doom us all." But Kalen stood firm. "They are not the enemy," he said, voice trembling with conviction. "They are the line. And if we do not stand beside them, then our people will die watching someone else fight our battles." The council froze. Never had a mechanic spoken to them this way, but the truth rang clear. And for the first time, a Velithian elder whispered, "Prepare our fleets for joint command." The battle turned. Velithian ships, for all their fear, began to fly alongside. The Dauntless. Not in perfect formation, not like trained human squadrons, but enough. Their lances of crystal fire began to cover the warship's flanks, shielding her from smaller enemy craft. David watched from the command deck of the battered cargo hauler he'd repaired, Kalen beside him. The ship wasn't built for war, but David had rewired its engines, patched its systems, and strapped crude cannons along its sides. "Hold her steady," David barked as Alarm screamed. Kellen's hands shook on the controls. "This ship isn't meant for this." David slammed a hand on the console. "Neither are we. Doesn't mean we quit." The cargo hauler dove into the chaos, firing desperately, covering a Velithian corvette that would have otherwise been torn apart. On the comms, the voice of Captain Reyes thundered, "Velithians, humans, it doesn't matter. Today, we fight as one. Hold the line." The Leviathan screamed, not in sound, but in vibration, a ripple that shook every hull. Callan's bones rattled, his vision blurred. Several Velithian ships simply shattered, their crystalline cores splitting apart from the force. David gritted, his teeth, blood dripping from his nose. "It's trying to scare us. Make us break," Kalen gasped. "It's working." David slammed the throttle forward. "Not on me." The hauler roared toward the Leviathan, dodging debris and flame. Kalen stared at the human beside him, scarred, stubborn, reckless. And he realized something. It wasn't just human weapons that terrified the galaxy. It was their refusal to yield, even when logic said they should. The Dauntless reached this Leviathan's flank. Her cannons roared, tearing open a wound in the beast's shifting armor. For the first time, the thing bled. Not fire, not metal, but something darker. A void that seemed to eat the stars around it. Targets vulnerable. Captain Reyes bellowed, "All ships concentrate fire." Velithian and human vessels poured everything they had into the wound. Beams of crystal and arcs of plasma struck together, a storm of fury across the black. The Leviathan reeled, shrieking, through the void. For a moment, it seemed possible. For a moment, the galaxy believed. But then, the rift widened again. Dozens more Leviathans began to emerge. Kellen's heart stopped. "There's more?" David's cigarette dropped from his lips, forgotten. His voice was low, heavy, filled with dread. "Yeah," he whispered. "There's always more." The price of trust. The assembly chamber was silent. Every elder's luminous wings were folded tight, every eye fixed on the glowing transmission. The human captain's voice filled the crystal hall, grim but unwavering. "If we don't close the rift now, no world will survive. But to do it, we need to burn our ship, the Dauntless, humanity's pride. Their survivor, their hammer, their shield, burned, sacrificed." Kalen felt his throat tighten. He turned to David Halai, who stood at the edge of the chamber, arms crossed, face unreadable. "They can't," Kalen whispered. "It's their strongest ship, their only chance." David's voice was low, steady. "It's not about ships. It's about lives. That's the human way." The assembly erupted. "Lies," one elder shrieked. "They seek to trick us into weakness," another hissed. "We cannot stake our future on their madness." But Kalen slammed his hands against the crystal table, startling them into silence. "You fools," he spat, his voice trembling with rage. "You've seen them fight. You've seen them bleed. They don't waste lives for pride. They risk them for others. Can you not see? They're asking us to trust them because they already trust us." A chamber buzzed with furious debate. But the decision would take time. Too much time, and time was running out. Above Velith Prime, the battle raged. The Leviathans poured from the rift like an endless tide. The Velithian fleet was breaking, their elegant formations shattered. Only the Dauntless held firm, her cannons cutting, her engines roaring, her scars multiplying. On the bridge of the battered cargo hauler, Kalen gripped the controls, sweat dripping down his temples. The ship groaned with every maneuver. David barked orders beside him, steady even in chaos. Cut across their flank. Give that corvette cover. Now throttle back. Good, good, Kalen gasped. We're just a hauler. David's mouth twisted into a grim smile. So we're half. The ship's humanity ever used. Doesn't matter what you start with. Matters how you finish. The comms flared. Captain Reyes' voice came through, strained but resolute. Dauntless to all forces. We've armed the core. We're going to detonate at the rift. If you've got a prayer, say it now. The channel fell quiet. Kellen's wings trembled. They're really going to do it. David closed his eyes for a moment. His hand brushed the old scars along his jaw. They always knew this day would come. Every crewman on that ship signed up knowing they'd never see home again. It's not about dying. It's about making the death mean something. On the Dauntless. Alarm screamed. Fires tore through bulkheads. Hull plating split. But the crew fought on, station by station, holding the Leviathans back as the warship cut a path straight toward the rift. The Leviathans turned on her, sensing the threat. Beams of void energy lashed out, tearing chunks from her flanks. Whole decks collapsed. Still she roared forward. Kellen's chest burned as he watched. It was like staring at a living thing sacrificing itself, step by agonizing step. They can't make it alone, Kalen whispered. David's jaw tightened. He slammed a fist on the console. And we don't let them die alone. He seized the comms, his voice raw with fury. This is David Hawley. The Lithian fleet. Stop running. Stop hiding. You want to live? Then fight. Cover the Dauntless with everything you've got. The channel buzzed with hesitation. Panic. Fear. Then, a single Dilithian captain's voice broke through. For Velith Prime, for the Assembly, for the living. Dozens of Velithian ships turned, surging forward to shield the human warship. They fell by the dozens, shattered into burning fragments, but they bought seconds. Seconds were all the Dauntless needed. The Leviathan's colossal beam cut across the warship, tearing her hull in half. Alarms shrieked across every frequency. Still, the Dauntless pushed forward, engines screaming, cannons blazing, carving her way to the heart of the rift. Bridge, Captain Reyes stood tall, blood running down her temple. All hands, she said softly. You've served with honor. Today, we write our names in fire. She pressed her hand against the console. Detonate the core. From Velith Prime's surface, Kalen and David watched as the Dauntless lit the heavens. Her core erupted in a blinding wave of light, brighter than a sun. The blast tore through the Leviathans, ripping them apart, burning their unnatural hulls into ash. The rift shuddered, collapsed, and finally sealed with a thunderous silence. The night sky went dark, no more Leviathans. No more rift, only wreckage, only silence. Kalen collapsed to his knees, trembling. His luminous skin flickered weakly. They're gone, all of them. Their greatest ship, their greatest warriors, gone. David stood over him, silent. His eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. He couldn't. He just lit another cigarette, inhaled deeply, and let the smoke curl into the night sky. They knew the price, he said quietly. They paid it, and now the galaxy lives. Kalen looked up at him, voice breaking. How do you bear it? Losing so much? David's gaze was distant, heavy with a lifetime of loss. We don't bear it, he said softly. We carry it. Every name, every death. We carry it forward. That's how we survive. Kellen's chest ached. his people had always feared. Loss avoided sacrifice, hidden behind treaties. But now he understood. Survival wasn't about avoiding death. It was about giving it meaning. Above them, the wreckage of the Dauntless drifted silently. Her fire was gone, but her sacrifice had sealed the rift. The galaxy had been saved, not by fleets, not by councils, not by treaties, but by a single human warship that refused to yield. Asterisk, the day the galaxy trembled. Night sky above Velith Prime was quiet for the first time in months. No leviathans, no rift, only silence, punctuated by the soft glow of drifting wreckage. But deep among the debris, something flickered. A beacon. A survivor's signal. Kellen's breath caught as the sensors confirmed it. It's human, he whispered. One of them survived. David Halle didn't speak. His cigarette fell from his fingers as he leaned forward, staring at the console like it might vanish if he blinked. Trajectory's bad, Kalen muttered, hands flying over the controls. They'll burn up in the atmosphere if we don't. David shoved him aside, seizing the helm. His voice was hard steel again. Then we don't let them. The cargo hauler roared skyward, its patched engines screaming against gravity. Panels shook, alarms flashed, but the ship surged through the thinning atmosphere toward the stars, toward the beacon. Through shattered glass and broken steel, they saw it at last, a battered escape pod spinning end over end, trailing sparks. From ruptured thrusters. Lock on! Kalen shouted. The tractor beam flickered, weak and unstable. Twice it missed, once it snapped out entirely. But David held the controls steady, his knuckles white, his jaw locked tight. Come on, he growled. Come on, you stubborn bastard. The beam locked. The pod shuddered, jerked, then steadied as the hauler wheeled it in. Minutes later, in the dim cargo bay, the pod's hatch hissed open. Smoke poured out. A single figure slumped forward, coughing, bloodied, barely conscious. Captain Reyes. Kalen gasped. David caught her before she fell, lowering her gently to the deck. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed but fierce. Did we do it? David nodded, voice rough. You closed it. Rift's gone. Galaxy's safe. For the first time, her lips curved into a faint, weary smile. Then, worth it. And she collapsed into unconsciousness. Word spread. Like fire. First, Velith Prime. Then its moons. Then across the neighboring systems. Then across the assembly, worlds. The story of the Dauntless. How a single human warship had faced the abyss and sealed it with fire. How her crew had given everything, not for conquest, not for glory, but so countless others might live. How the Velithians themselves had risen beside them at the last moment, proving that trust could bridge even the deepest divide. For the first time in memory, the galaxy trembled. Not with fear, with awe. The assembly reconvened weeks later. The chamber was silent as Captain Reyes, pale but recovering, was escorted to the central dais. David walked beside her, scarred and unshaken. Kalen followed, his luminous wings folded in reverence. High Elder spoke. You stand before us as the last voice of your warship. What message do you bring? Reyes lifted her chin, her voice clear despite the pain still etched into her frame. Humanity has no empire, no throne, no dominion. We only have one promise. If the darkness comes again, we will not run. We will stand, and we will stand with you, if you'll have us. The chamber rippled with shock. Whispers. Dissent. Awe. Kalen stepped forward, eyes blazing. You saw what they did, what we did. Our fleets would have shattered without them. Our people would be ash. They ask for no throne, no crown, only trust. Will you spit on that sacrifice? The chamber went silent. Then, one by one, The wings of the elders unfurled, shimmering with solemn light. The assembly bowed. Months later, the wreckage of the Dauntless was gathered into orbit around Velith Prime. Velithian crystal and human steel fused together, forming a great memorial ring. Its name was etched into the hull in 24 languages. Dauntless she stood when all others Ethel pilgrims came, from every world, from every race, to see the scars, to touch the steel, to whisper their thanks. And beneath that silent ring, humanity was no longer just a curiosity, no longer just the species that arrived too late to matter. They were guardians. They were allies. They were the ones who stood when the galaxy trembled. On the surface, Kaelin and David sat on the cargo hauler's battered ramp, staring at the night sky. Kellen's voice was quiet. "Do you think your people will return? More ships? More humans?" David exhaled smoke, eyes fixed on the stars. "They'll come. Not for conquest, not for power, but because they'll know this place matters now, that you matter. And when they come, the galaxy won't be the same." Kellen's wings glimmered faintly. "Because of one ship?" David shook his head. "Because of the people on it. People willing to burn everything, so others don't have to." Kaelin was silent for a long time. Then softly, "Maybe. Maybe we can learn to be like that." David looked at him, eyes heavy but warm. "You already have." The stars above them glittered, silent, endless, watching Dot, and somewhere, far away, in the dark between galaxies, something else stirred. Dot, another rift, another shadow, another test yet to come. But now the galaxy was ready, because humanity had arrived, and they were dauntless.